Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, when you're working outside the system a little bit, especially in the film industry, it's important to switch things up a little bit and deliver something that might be a little unexpected. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more, in a light and conversational fashion. And you know, between you and me, if you like how we do things around here, I'm assuming you do. You're listening. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, basically wherever you get your podcasts. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would really appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we are on Instagram at In the Seats. We're at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates. And finally, I say it a lot, but it's true. This is the most important thing. Please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, film festivals, video on demand, basically the moving image at large, because if we love to write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come and read about it and listen about it. So please stop on by. On this episode, we got a good one. We got an interesting one. We're diving into the new film I, Challenger, which pretty sure is available on most VOD platforms now, and it's a unique little film. Just to put it as simply as possible. I mean, it's a romantic comedy, but it's about a stoner drug dealer who is trying to, will himself to a better life, and ends up doing a live video stream of him being buried in a coffin. And well, the things go awry from there. Like I said, like I said at the beginning, this is a film that sort of turns convention on its ear a little bit and gives us something that is, quite frankly, a little different, but also really rewarding at the same time. And we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with not just the director of the film, one Paul Boyd, but also we got to star with its star, James Duval. It's really an interesting little twist on the rom-com but it's got some dark edges to it. It's a hard one to sum up, but I think that's what sort of the real interesting part of indie cinema is, because it allows filmmakers and storytellers like this to sort of push convention and try to do something a little different. But it's a fun movie, which I do recommend you check out. It is on video on demand platforms now. But enjoy our talk with Paul and with James, because it's a good one.
Thank you, David. I guess, Paul, my first question is for you. Walk me through sort of the origin of the story, because I mean, obviously that third act takes a bit of a dark turn. So
yeah, well, for the longest time I'd wanted to make a contained thriller, and then I'd been throwing around the idea of doing a stoner comedy, and then those two things came together. It was like we were doing research about trying to find a theme for a contained thriller. My co-writer found these kids in Russia that were burying themselves. So we went with that. We thought, okay, we'll make it an internet challenge that allows us to do the live stream and address the whole social media generation. And that was it. But but underneath it all, it's kind of a love story. You know what I mean? It was like there's all the surface stuff going on, but there's a story at the core of it all, which is a love story.
No, for sure. And I mean, I guess that brings you up, James, because I mean, your character really does have to run through a sort of a broad range of sort of emotions and feelings. I mean, can you walk me through, I guess, how you felt when you saw the script for the first time, what you thought about the character?
Well, I love the character. The first time I read it, it was kind of, the read was much like watching the movie. It's a bit of an adventure all the way to going, in the box underneath the ground. But yeah, there were a lot of elements that I really, I was taken to right away, and this sort of arc, the person that Sid starts that you meet and the person that he evolves into, as well as the kind of layers that are, peeled away as you as the audience get to know him.
No, for sure, man. And I mean, it's one of those things where, obviously at the beginning, I'm like, okay, this is a bit goofy, and you're running with it. And then just slowly, but you're creeping to the edge of your seat, and it's like, oh shit. But I mean, I think that's sort of the real power of the movie, because it's very consciously trying to mix it up. And I'm kind of curious for both you guys, how important is it, especially these days, given the glut of content that we're all sort of bombarded with, to sort of be able to put stuff out there that is trying to mix it up and really trying to sort of subvert what we may sort of suspect on things, even from the first act to the third act kind of thing.
Oh, I'm so glad you got that, because that's exactly what we were trying to do, is kind of, break the mold a little. But, I mean, again, we didn't know. We knew we were trying to make a comedy, but we weren't writing any jokes. So we didn't know if it was going to be funny. Do you know what I mean? Because we're going into this going, so we were balancing these two genres, and kind of, we just had to go by our guts and what felt right. And when we wrote it, it felt right, because we were trying to do something a little out of the ordinary, you know what I mean? Ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. So we bent reality a little bit and took it into the fantasy stoner realm that gave us license to have more fun. And I think we went into it with that attitude, right, James? We were just having a laugh like every day, I swear to God.
The thing is, it's so kind of original, the story in itself, and the idea of kind of mixing the genres up, which is really exciting, especially this day and age, to keep things refreshing and to keep things new. And one movie that comes to mind is Shaun of the Dead. It wasn't your typical zombie movie. It wasn't just your comedy either. It had these dramatic moments, had these sad moments, and it confused some audiences at first, especially since that movie came out a little while ago. But the idea of mixing it up, at least for me as a fan, that's what I loved about the movie, that it made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me think. It was poignant at times, and then at times it was about nothing at all except for a goofy zombie movie. I think, what do they call it, a rom-com?
Yeah.
Romantic zombie comedy. I wouldn't call ours a romantic zombie comedy necessarily, but it definitely
stoner-rom-com, yeah.
Yeah, between comedy and
thriller rom-com, yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, thriller
rom-com, yeah, that's hilarious. You know what? Look, if people get it, we're thrilled. Do you know what I mean? Because we did it so small, micro budget, 12 days. Like, this was a handmade film, literally with a small group of people. So we weren't beholden to anyone. Do you know what I mean? We went in guns a-blazing, going, let's just see how this comes out. But with no expectations really, and kind of letting the film be what it was meant to be. Not knowing how funny it was going to be, or was it going to be scary? Because the scary part is really about Sid confronting his past, right? It's how we find out what made him who he is. So that was interesting to be able to turn that page in an interesting way, to reveal a little bit more about his character when he's under serious duress, So you get the audience to kind of fall for him, because he's not likable in the beginning. And then as you see that he's a nice person, you begin to fall for him, and then you're with him on this journey into the darkness. So you care a little bit more, hopefully. And then that's when the suspense and all that, as you said, edge of your seat, man. If we get anyone responds that way, then to me it's a success, whether it makes any money. It's just, did it work as a story,
To be sitting here talking with you about it right now is humbling, because these are talking about the movies, the first responses to people seeing it. And, being the filmmakers, it's, you kind of, it's hard to distance yourself from the movie, what it really is to other people, because we're so close to it for so long.
Yeah.
Paul, closer than myself.
James, I've got to ask, how method did you get inside the box? Like, were you in an actual box, or was it some sort of construct? Walk me through having to go through sort of these big
it was
reveals in such a tight space.
It was a box. To be honest, I tried not to think about it until we were filming with it, and then dealt with it then. I probably did a little rehearsing as far as I had to learn the dialogue. So I learned all the dialogue for the stuff on the box lying on my back, and something that Paul introduced me to when we did like a quick reading before we started shooting. I read underneath the table, and I felt to read underneath the table with something in front of me, lying on my back, disoriented. If I could rehearse and get comfortable with that, then I'd be much more comfortable once I got into the enclosure, which was true. But to be honest with you, for, maybe 80% of that, at least 80%, they're removing one face of the box, either the top or the side or the, but there was a time when they completely enclosed me in the box with just the GoPros going and a big camera, and then, lights. So it got really hot and kind of confined in the box. So there were a couple times when I probably freaked out screaming a little bit, get me out of the box.
Yeah, a few seconds. We were
Yeah,
right
and
there.
they thought I was rehearsing, so they didn't get me out quite right
Yeah.
away.
He was so method, man. When he showed up to the set, which was a friend's house, he was like, "Oh, I'm just going to sleep here." I was like, "What?" He goes, "No, I'm going to sleep in Sid's bed." He became Sid. You know, it's amazing because Sid was a different character until James came into the picture. And then it just became a facet of James. It was like he put so much of himself into the role, like his sensitivity and all that. And we just kind of molded it to his point of view and allowed him to kind of run with it, which I think, you know, it was interesting because you go in with there's 3 films, right? The one you write, the one you shoot, and the one you end up with. And it is interesting with this because the character really evolved, right, James? I mean, from what it was on the page.
Thank you for having the trust in me because, you know, what it really did, it was, you know, there's, like Paul said, it happens in 3 stages. And one of the most important things I've learned over all the years of making a movie, or really anything, you know, you have your blueprints and you have what you set out to make. But then there's going to be these unforeseen circumstances that you're going to encounter, hurdles, so to speak, roadblocks. And how you deal with those is going to deal with the outcome of your film, ultimately. And so it's really being able to kind of work in the moment, you know, and like Paul said, we were working on a quick schedule. I've never shot a movie in 12 days like this. So that was a bit of a challenge in itself. So rolling through it was, you know, for me, kind of living it. It was kind of living it. And I you know, I want to thank Paul again because he did kind of let me live on set while we were filming all the stuff where Sid lived. I pretty much lived there the entire time.
Well, that was a dream, you know what I mean? Because think about it, as a director, your actor wants to stay on the set. I mean, that is like, you never get that. They're like, "Oh, I've got to go, it's 5 o'clock. I've got to get the fuck out of here." He's like, "I'll stay here." I mean, he just shaved his head. I mean, that was why he got the part, because upon meeting him, it was like, I understood that he understood the character. And I think that's half of the battle of acting, right? That's why a lot of non-actors can act, if they can be the character. And to me, I was like, we just have to put as much of James into this role, like, so that it just became comfortable for him, and it was great. You know, he's done a lot of movies, over 100 films. You bring that much experience is what allowed us to do it in 12 days, because he was doing like 10 pages a day. Do you know what I mean? Off book, like, just had it all learned. It was,
the script made it easy. It's true. You hear a lot of actors say it, and it sounds cliche, but it's true. It really is all the writers for us. If we have a really great crafted script, that the blueprint comes in pretty much perfect, then all we have to do is perform what we're given. We don't have to change it or modify it or fix it or any of those kind of ideas that you get as an actor or that occur to you while you're reading material. That didn't really happen with Paul's script. You know, all the material was right there on the page. And that's a joy as an actor, because that makes my job a lot easier, to be honest. You know, I just do what's written.
You did some wicked improv, though, man. At the door with the kids and all the kids coming to buy weed. Oh my God, like, it was all improv.
That was a joy as well.
Funny.
Well, I've got to imagine for you, James, that being able to tackle something like this, because I mean, like Paul said, you do have a lot of films under your belt and you've got a lot of experience. Not every job's going to be as sort of creatively rewarding as you may want it to. I got to imagine, is it these kind of jobs that sort of keep the fire going for you to sort of, you know, on the next job when it's like, okay, it's a shitty part, but it's a paycheck kind of thing?
Well, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, it really is, because there's that part of it. There's the part that whether it's successful, you know, it's so much based on how much you work again as how big your last project was. And to a certain degree, which is really, it's self-defeating for us as actors to worry about that stuff. And we have to worry about it more than ever in this, you know, day and age of social media and promoting yourself and whatnot. But, you know, I was kind of raised, you know, a little bit before in the 90s when I started making movies. And the idea was, and it still is for me, the most ultimate place for me to be as an actor is on set or on stage performing. That's where we work tirelessly. We work those horrible jobs all for those moments. So it really is kind of training and putting in literally lifeblood to get to those moments. So when I get to something like Paul's script, in Kara's, you know, script, for me, it was, I get to forget about everything and really just go 150% commit myself and be a part of it. And there's a joy and a freedom and a liberty in that, I can say, that I don't get from anything else. And so that really is the largest reward. And so when you go to those next jobs, you were saying that might not, that it is a job, and it is, I gotta, you know, I need a paycheck. I got to eat. I'm like, I got to pay bills like everybody else.
Right.
Because I don't have money coming in, you know, weekly like that. It's only when I'm working. So, you know, keeping that in mind. And, you know, I also think that I'm really actually fortunate that I get to do that. You know, I don't have to go work a regular 9-to-5 job or bust my ass, so to speak, doing other things when if you do what you love and you love what you do, then you're never really working, right?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
But to get paid to do what you love is a dream come true.
You just
And
have to
so-
get tortured by people like me, putting you underground in boxes and trying to drown you and all that, you know. It's like,
I
that's what
love doing
actors,
that stuff. I got to be honest, Paul. I had a blast doing that.
that's why you need actors, because that's what they're willing to do, the superhuman stuff that, you know what I mean? You write it down, the actor goes, yeah, I could do that. You know, that's amazing thing that there are people out there that will subject themselves or put themselves in that mind state, even though they're acting, right? Like when he's in that box and he's screaming and yelling, people have a visceral reaction to that because they go, oh, he's panicking. And, you know, that has to take a toll somehow. I mean, on the set, he was exhausted. Like he put so much of that emotion into it that it was, you know, I think that's what makes the film in the end is the commitment of the performance, because it's this wacky, crazy story, but at the core of it, there's this really emotional performance from James, I think, which is, you know, what holds it.
Inspired by an emotionally written character by Paul and Kara. So
No,
thank
but
you,
I mean,
Captain.
you know what? I mean, I
Thank you very
absolutely
much.
agree with you guys, because I mean, this film to me really, I think, highlights sort of the importance of the relationship between the writer director and the actor, because the writer can, you know, scribble something down crazy and different and wild and say, fuck it, let's try it. But without the actor who's willing to sort of commit to that vision at the same time, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm kind of curious for both of you, sort of think back to maybe sort of the movie moments that got you into this business, because just to listen to you talk, I mean, I get the sense that for both of you, the actor-director, sort of actor-writer relationship is very important, sort of on both your ends.
Definitely. I mean, look at, you know, De Niro, Scorsese, you know, I mean, through the history of film, that's an important relationship. I think it's important to work with lots of actors, but I think that relationship is so key because, you know, he's like, I get the vision, he's the brush, you know, I mean, he's the one, you know, making the painting come alive. To me, it's images and ideas and sounds and, do you know what I mean? It's a concept,
For sure.
but to him, it's a real thing. He has to physically become it. That's why I have so much admiration for artists, performers, singers, actors, dancers, because they are the art, you know what I mean?
And the writer, directors, and cameramen who capture those.
Yeah, well, we come up with
Creative.
it, but physically doing it. That's why I love working with actors, you know?
It really is that collaborative effort, you know, and sometimes as an actor, for me, it's as simple as like, you know, if you think about moments that are like iconic in film, you know, one for me is when Luke Skywalker from the very first Star Wars is standing over the very twin suns, and you hear this music and you're watching that. And I think it was the same for all of us, no matter how old you were or whether you were a boy or a girl. It's like you had this sense of adventure, that there was something kind of really surrealistic out there for you,
for sure,
that was waiting. This whole new adventure waiting, just like it was waiting for him. And it made the hair on my arm stand up. And if I could be a part of stories like that.
It's that scene in Lawrence of Arabia where he burns the match down.
Yeah.
To his fingertips. And the soldier goes, "What's the trick, Lawrence? It hurts." He goes, "The trick is not minding
that it hurts."
You know, and then he goes and blows it out, and then you cut to the sunrise. Right? It's like one of the best edits in film, but it's preceded with this profound dialogue. And you know, to me, that kind of mythology is important. I'm a big student of Joseph Campbell. There's a lot of mythology in this film. If you want to dig under the surface and the subtext, and that's important. I think, you know, to try and put meaning in there, you know, in a way, these Easter eggs, this hidden meaning, you know, I mean, that is the joy I get out of writing, is to try and create as many layers as possible. And, you know, on a surface level, it's just kids getting stoned and being goofy. You know what I mean? That's what the film is. Yeah. So that's what's exciting to me is, you know, bringing all the artists together.
No, but you know what? I mean, when I first read the premise, I didn't think a stoner getting locked in a box would bring these sort of emotional, cathartic, sort of character-driven moments. But you guys did it and then some. And then just congratulations on the film, and thank you so much for the time today, guys. This was fun.
Thank you, David. It's so great to hear that.
Much appreciated.
Thank you for your time.
Oh yeah, man. Please, thank you. All right.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.